Hello, my name is BarryMcGrath and you're very welcome to my presentation entitled Interview with a Professional Technical Writer. This presentation is an assignment due for the University of Limerick module TW5212 Workplace Issues in Technical and Professional Communication, submitted in the spring 2017 semester. I'd like to begin by presenting a quote that came up during the course of the interview and which the interviewee also wrote and published in a blog just days before the interview, and that is his definition of technical writing, which he defines succinctly as the art of making sense. There are many definitions of technical writing out there, but I think this one encapsulates the essence of it quite well. Slide 3 presents a presentation overview. We'll begin by giving a brief introducing the interviewee and giving a brief biography. We'll then look at his education and some thoughts that he has on education relevant to technical writing. We'll look at his technical writing career to date, which spans over 10 years. The interviewee then shares some thoughts, general thoughts on what it's like to be a technical writer. He then offers some sound advice for students. We'll then look at some industry trends that he has noticed in his 10 or so years in the industry, and we'll finish up with some general conclusions and recommendations. Moving on to slide 4, I'd like at this point to introduce the interviewee, who is Mr. Fernando Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez currently works in his regular day job as a technical writer with Avio Limited, based in their Limerick office in Castletroy. Avio is a booking engine provider for the hospitality industry, and Mr. Sanchez works there as a technical writer. In total, Mr. Sanchez has over 10 years direct experience in the industry and has worked in various technical writing related roles down through the years, including being a technical writer, instructional designer, freelance journalist, editor, social media manager and writer. In slide 5 we'll look at Mr. Sanchez's education. His educational background is he holds a bachelor's degree in computing. He does not have any formal technical writing education, but he has been writing for personal enjoyment since as early as he can remember. Since becoming a professional writer, he has had extensive extra training and education in areas related to content development, such as computer programming, the Adobe suite of products, website design and development, and instructional design. Slide 6, we'll continue on with the education theme, and having worked with many technical writers over the years, Mr. Sanchez is of the opinion that a formal technical writing education is not essential to becoming a technical writer, but will certainly help employment prospects, especially in getting the first technical writing job. It's also, he suggests, a very good way to stay in contact and develop contacts in the field. What is essential, however, for becoming a technical writer is an in-depth knowledge of grammar and English language, and he stressed this several times. It may be stating the obvious, but he says you've got to have the right foundations in place. He also believes that having an interest in language, reading and communication will all help in becoming a competent technical writer. As technical writing is so dependent on technology developments, it's important that one keeps up to date through education and through further training, and he says these are vital things to do for the modern technical writer. In slide 7 we'll take a look at Mr. Sanchez's career to date. His first job after graduating from university was with Dell Computers. He was initially employed in the IT end of things, but over time he found he was doing less IT and more writing. As his profile grew as a writer within the company, he found that increasingly he was being asked to do more and more technical writing jobs with Dell. After 10 or so years with Dell, he moved to Firecrest in in Castletroy in Limerick. Firecrest developed software for the drug clinical trials industry, and he worked there as a technical writer / clinical writer for almost 8 years. After his time at Firecrest, he ventured into the world of freelance writing for a few years and worked as a technical writer, instructional designer with several IT companies, mainly in Dublin. For the past year, he has been working with Avio Limited, but he also holds several other freelance writing positions, mainly with online and print publications, and some of these are listed on slide 7. In slide 8, Mr. Sanchez shares some thoughts and general reflections on being a technical writer. The first thing that he mentioned a few times during the course of the interview is that being a writer is a very responsible position. As a technical writer, whatever you write represents your employer, the organization you work for, and writers must bear that in mind at all times. One of the most enjoyable aspects of being a writer for Mr. Sanchez is that he believes it's a great opportunity to learn about a diverse range of topics. As a writer, you invariably get to work with many others, so having good interpersonal skills are also crucial for being a technical writer. As technical writing is so dependent on technology, one must be comfortable with learning new software, as one has to do this quite regularly. Moving on to slide 7, Mr. Sanchez generously shared some advice for technical communication students. As alluded to in the previous slide, because it is such a responsible position, one must learn how to manage stress effectively, as the role carries so much responsibility, and there can be a very considerable weight on one's shoulders. He found this particularly true during his time with Firecrest, where he was a clinical writer and where the room for error, or the margin for error, was very low. He also suggests developing core skills in the areas of writing, project management, and interviewing. In relation to project management, Mr. Sanchez stressed that as a writer, he spends an awful lot of time coordinating other people and projects, and also he advised project management, brushing up on project management skills, as project management is becoming ever more relevant in today's workplace. He also mentioned that as a good technical writer should be able to write about any given topic, and key to this are good interviewing skills. Being able to extract that information from your sources is critical to being a good technical writer. He emphasized further education and training in IT, and especially in multimedia applications, as writers depend on technology so much. He also stressed developing as broad a network of technical writing contacts as possible. This will help in getting employment, particularly in the initial stages of your career, and also for staying informed about trends within the industry. Slide 10 looks at some industry and workplace trends that Mr. Sanchez has noticed during his 10 or so years in the industry. During this time, he has noticed a shift from text-heavy to multimedia-heavy content, especially in certain industries. This was particularly evident during his 8 or so years with Firecrest, who are a clinical or specialists in clinical trial industry, and this industry has traditionally relied on multimedia to quite an extent, but over the recent years he saw a big shift towards multimedia heavy content in that industry. He hasn't noticed it so much in his current role with Avio, where it's a text heavy industry. Increasingly, project management methodologies and especially agile approaches are becoming more and more commonplace. working with technology developments, he found that working as part of virtual teams is also on the rise. And he also noticed that permanent jobs or long-term contracts in the writing industry are becoming rarer and rarer all the time. Very few of his contacts within the industry have long-term contracts. The penultimate slide looks at some conclusions from this presentation. The modern technical writer must have in place some core skills, and some of the core skills required are good writing ability, good interviewing skills, and the ability to project manage. Today's technical writer must educate and take further training to stay informed of developments in the field. A good technical writer should be able to write about any given topic given good source material. And he emphasized on numerous occasions how important it is to develop a network of contacts within the field. For your time and attention. End of presentation.